so we will open the meeting. Welcome to everybody. We haven't seen some people for a couple of meetings, and just to update people, we opened the meeting last week, or I should say we didn't officially open the meeting because I was having some questions about whether there was a quorum or not. There were 4 people there. You know, typically we have 5 or more. We decided not to proceed with the meeting, but having reflected on the makeup of the committee and the fact that Kathy Stanley is an advisory, non-voting member, I really think that 4 is a quorum. So for future purposes, we'll proceed with 4. And if it's the most important issue, of course, you know, we would revisit it when there's more people, of course. In any event, so I think the first item on the agenda is review of the minutes. And
Molly, I'm sorry, before we get started, can we just go and see who is on the call in case do we think there are any members that are called in that aren't known to us?
The only person is the 508 person who I asked if they could identify themselves. I'm not sure if they heard me. I don't think I got a response, but I know that that's not Janet because I would recognize Janet. From
sure, she came on camera. Yep. Okay, it makes sense. Just wanted to make sure.
Good point, and that does remind me, actually, since we have an observer, to make just to make the clarification that this is a public meeting of the Climate Action Plan Committee, and as a public meeting, the public certainly is welcome to attend and observe. We do have on tonight's agenda, number 9 is public comment if somebody has a statement they would like to make. But during the meeting, it is critical that non-members that of the committee, that if they can be completely silent so that the members can focus and can conduct the meeting without distraction and interruption. So I would ask that observers be on mute, quite frankly, until such time as public comment comes around. And then if they want to make a comment, they would be welcome to do so at that time. So thank you. And I would try to build that into my introduction. If anybody needs to prompt me or cue me, that would be terrific. So our first item is review of the minutes. And I believe these were presented just before the past meeting. And these are the September 25th, 2023 minutes. The prior September 11th, I know were approved. And once these are approved as well, then those will be forwarded to the town for our website as well. So has everybody had an opportunity to read the September 25th minutes? And does anybody have any proposed edits or comments? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion concerning the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion accepting the minutes of September 25th. I'm sorry.
That's correct.
Okay, September 25th.
Second?
Second. Sorry.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes? And I think just because I can't see anybody, if we just do a roll call, and I'll start with Aisha.
Aye.
James?
I vote yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Rachel?
Aye.
Laura?
Yep.
And I vote yes as well. So those minutes can then just be sent as final to me, and I will mark them approved. Thank you for your hard work, Michael, meeting after meeting on that. The next item on the agenda is item 3, interim recommendations and proposals. And if I recall, the last time we had a full meeting, we were talking about people's proposals for what 3 or 4 recommendations would be. And it may have been 3 or 4 on the mitigation side, and then 2 or 3 on the adaptation resilience side, as I recall it. And I did send, if I have it here, I did send my suggestions. I did not get emails from other people, which is fine. we can just go through what people's, list of top 3 or 4 or 5 might be. And we can, take notes and put that in the minutes, and then further confer about that as we, again, still are gathering information about where we might want to act, that we would have the most impact and the most likelihood of making some progress. So maybe I'll just go around again clockwise, and I could start with Aisha as to her thoughts as to what she would recommend or focusing on as far as interim recommendations. And again, my idea is sometime around May, which again is a little bit less than the 12 months when we will have been composed as a committee, but in recognition of the urgent nature of this undertaking, that we would have some interim recommendations to make in a brief report to the select board. And also, quite frankly, I'd love to report to the town meeting at that time for the May town meeting. So with that in mind, Aisha, what ideas or thoughts might you have?
If I'm correct, Michael, I did recall that I put in my recommendation on our September 11th meeting, and you did write it down. I did my recommendation on that day. I didn't wait to send it through an email. If you can recall on that last meeting, it's on the minutes.
Okay. I mean, I don't have them at my fingertips. I don't have the September 11th meetings minutes in my fingertips. We can just go, if you have it, if you saw them recorded there, we'll just assume that those are issues. Do you have any, anything to call to mind of what you were focusing on?
Of course, I did put in my first recommendation to be crisis management.
That's what I remember. Okay, great.
Yeah. And then the other 2, I can't really say it offhand, but I did put it on that September 11th meeting. It should be there.
Okay. James, your thoughts?
Yes, I'd give it some thought, and I'd be interested in looking more along floodplain management. And as far as that goes, I attended the Massachusetts Floodplain Managers Conference at Holy Cross College last Monday, and I got a lot of useful information and insight on floodplain management. That's along the same lines as the mission of the Climate Action Plan Committee. I have a lot to share with you on that once that comes up in our conversations when we present our findings. In addition to that, it's a little off in a different direction, but I've been interested in the electrovolt charging stations, and I've been looking into seeing if it's possible to find out what would be involved in having at least one super charging station in the community, where we have several electrical, 3-phase electrical high tension wire easements in the town. I've reached out to NSTAR already, haven't reached out to National Grid yet, but on their webpage, there's a lot of opportunities, and there's all types of, there's videos that you can watch and so forth on meetings and presentations they've had in the past to educate people along those lines. If anyone else is interested in that, I would also encourage anyone in the CAP to go on the webpage for NSTAR to get a better handle on this as well in order to move this forward. Now, the last thing I think that I'm probably, that I have been working with my job also, and every day I am working along the lines of the mission of the Climate Action Plan Committee in my regular job. But the idea of trail development, open space management is something I've been actively involved with the Conservation Commission. And we have a lot of work to do on our open space to make all our open space land accessible to folks and user-friendly to folks, and to try to get residents to warm up to the fact that the open space is something that has to be, it provides a public benefit for everybody, and not necessarily just the neighbors that surround the open space, but what part of our mission is to make it accessible and friendly to folks, and resourceful, so that all citizens can use our open space, and that nobody is left behind. Well, those are the three items I was thinking of, but I'd certainly be open to anything if anyone has any strong feelings about anything that I mentioned, or trade anything off with anybody else. So I'm certainly here to work with everybody, and just let me know if anyone wants to discuss any of these items, or if we can team up on anything.
Thank you, James. It was very thorough. Appreciate that. Michael?
Yeah, not too much, in part because even despite reading a lot lately, I really don't feel I have the expertise in any of these areas where I can really anticipate both benefits and potential drawbacks, which I think is going to be important. When we do make these recommendations, that we do go in with an understanding of what people might object to due to cost or anything else. That's the part I want to look into more. But for the time being, the simpler I think, the better. Did you say you wanted to have these? You wanted to make these recommendations in May?
I would like to, so we talked about interim recommendations in the article itself. And to me, that means approximately a year. It doesn't necessarily mean a year. It could be a lot shorter than a year. It could be 6 months, whatever. But I didn't want to wait till next July, because I think we'll have an opportunity to somehow interface with town meeting. And I would like to, have things on the table, whatever they may be, whether it's an article or not an article, or just, I would like to have it out there. Would like to have it before the town meeting members in May. And again, I think that reflects the urgency of the situation, that every month counts.
All right, two things, almost related, but definitely charging stations. And secondly, and one of the reasons I asked is because I think we should do this sooner rather than later if we're going to do it. But as Rachel's been suggesting for a while now, the anti-idling, I think that's probably one of the simplest things, and something we can, something we could do sooner rather than later if you wanted to start making recommendations at this time.
All right, that's absolutely true. All right, okay, Rachel, your thoughts?
Yeah, so
I'm sorry.
Laura raised her hand.
I raised my hand. I just wanted to make one ask, because I know that we had a list, we had an outline, or we had something that we had been working off of.
Yeah.
And I think that many of us have been thinking within our own, pieces of that, but it might be helpful if we brought up that outline to see the bigger picture of what we've been discussing. Because I know for myself, I had said, public health was an interest to mine. And, and I know you guys have had conversations while I've not been here, but maybe it would be good if we were all looking at the same thing and then prioritizing not only what we're interested in, but then how that fits within the greater framework. It's just a suggestion.
I just put the link to the outline in the chat. So
I don't know if the chat function is working or not. Let me see.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
What could possibly go wrong?
Perfect.
All right, wow.
People who are connected only by phone might not be able to view it, but I can see already that some people have clicked and joined.
Thank you, Rachel. This is exactly what I was looking for, and I couldn't find in my own emails.
I meant to send it out and I forgot I did. So
No, very good. Thank you. All right. So
And I
I
didn't
think,
interrupt, so sorry about that.
no, that's good. And again, that's, the more people who speak up, the more productive we become. So thank you for directing us to that. And then Rachel, do you want to give?
James just raised his hand.
Well, thank you, Rachel. I just wanted to say that in the August 13th email, I believe that the list is there. If folks can call that email up, that outline of our cap plan areas, a working draft is there. If we any of us had access to that to work on it.
Yeah, that's the
and
same
bring it up.
document.
We could talk about it. I just wanted to mention that I could resend this email to everyone if you'd like me to.
I think that's the same email that I put into the Google Doc. So the doc
good.
is more of a collaborative document than the email. So, but yeah, so I've made some updates, some
Same thing.
messages on there, but
Oh, excuse me, Rachel. So that is in Google Docs that was shared
Yes.
with members?
yes.
I'll
So
try
there,
to
I
advertise
put a
that.
more recent link into the chat, but it's also the outline. Let me just check what I put the subject message as.
So if that's the case, Michael, just for recording purpose, mine will fall under infrastructure and then building and housing.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
crisis management is directly under infrastructure, building and housing. Thank you.
In the minutes, Aisha, I thought yours, oh, okay, sorry. Never mind.
Yeah, so I just looked at what Rachel sent. So crisis management and then public health
Yep.
and then infrastructure and housing, because the crisis management falls directly on the that.
All right. So my list of things to work on. My interim recommendations are to hire a sustainability coordinator. That I would look into funding via grant, because I know that the state has grants for that. Another one of my low-hanging fruits, things that people are really interested in, is publicizing the compost grain barrel programs that we have, or to do a drive with Black Earth, because they said that they need another 33, or I don't remember exactly how many that they said that they'd need, but they only need a fraction of families to sign up for it, for them to do the composting here, and have supply barrels and take it away. Which, as someone who started composting this summer, that actually sounds really nice that they might deal with it. So, and also maybe if we could work with some of the larger community organizations, then that might also make it more financially feasible, etc. I think the greenhouse gas audit, which is being done by the Sustainability and Energy Committee, is the other big thing that we have to have. Then the anti-idling initiative, I talked to Sustainability Committee about it almost 2 weeks ago at their last meeting. I'm hoping that we can get it approved as a thing to work on, and with a coordinator in this week's meeting. And what I really want to do is I want to audit where we've been, because I think just because there's been so much turnover in the town, and because of COVID, in 2015 or 2012, we had all of these recommendations for what to do. I don't know what has been accomplished, what is in the works. So my big thing is I want to do an audit on that. Just an update on where are we at, so we know where to go. So we're not just making the exact same recommendations that were made 8 years ago that may have already been done or not. The last thing I want to work on is the charging stations for electric cars at the high school. Someone asked me about that, and they have not been turned on yet. I talked to Janet Hosseini, who said that the reason they haven't been turned on is that they're not sure what rates to charge, but that should be resolved soon. So pretty soon we should have electric charging stations at the high school. I want to keep that on the agenda of something to watch for and make sure it's actually going to happen. Maybe prod a little bit. But if we're going to bring in more charging stations, we should make sure that the ones we have are working, and they haven't even been turned on, and we don't have the contract set yet. And it sounded like it was on its way to happening.
All right.
So, and also superintendent, this can go in later, but I did have some good conversations this week.
All right, I'm trying to get back to the picture and get off the document. I think there I did it. Okay. All right, that's why I couldn't tell who was raising their hand. All right, so if you're complete, then we will go to Laura.
And James raised his hand again.
Okay, James.
James.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Laura. I just wanted to report to the CAP, if you haven't known, that the town hall has a plan where they propose a number of charging stations at the parking lot behind town hall. I wasn't aware if the CAP knew that or not. So I was just reporting that to you, that is something that I found out about in the past month or so, that they are working on some regular charging stations. Now, these are the charging facilities that they take 8 hours for a full charge. I cannot tell you how many there will be, but there'll be multiple there. I don't know what the timetable is, but I can tell you there are plans also there within the next few years to have them installed. And then the parking lot will also be upgraded too.
Thank you. That's good to know. And you should assume that we never know anything, honestly, that's going on. So, which gets to another agenda item on our agenda later. But so Michael,
Okay.
looks like you have something to say.
I was just going to ask Jim. Jim, is it, you know, you're talking about 8 charging stations in that lot?
I said a charging station. I don't know how many.
Eight.
I don't know
Oh, I
how
think you said
many.
8. Okay. Do you know if
8.
any of that is contingent on them getting out of their property they're talking about purchasing and turning into a lot?
Which property are we referring to? Our conservation land or?
No, right, the property right next door to the to town hall. It's on the warrant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're
I'm not
talking
aware of
about.
that, but it's about time. It's about time, and that may be contingent on that, Michael, because that wasn't
wondering.
discussed with me either, and I didn't ask the right question.
That's a
All
pretty
right.
tight little lot in there as it is. I hate pulling in and out of there, so I just don't see it as a prime. I'm sure they know what they're doing. Anyway, keep
I'll
going.
look into that more. I'll find out and I'll get back to you. I'll ask Mark and I'll get the story on that.
All right. So moving along, Laura, your potential interim recommendations that you'd want to focus on.
Yeah. So let me start with a question, which is the greenhouse gas inventory being done by the Sustainability Committee. Remind me what the timeline for that is.
I'll check in with them and ask. That's a good
Okay.
question. I know they have multiple people who are volunteering to do it and who have been involved in doing it before. I know that they know how to do it. So whether it's going to, I'll have to get back to you. I would assume that, that would be done by January or so.
And the reason I ask is it would be nice if we had something related to that high level, because obviously we don't know exactly what that's going to say, but some sort of subsequent recommendation based on what that greenhouse gas inventory is. So if we were going to be doing this, in that May timeline or whenever we were talking about it, it might be nice to have something that was like, okay, given that we think that this is going to be happening then we would have some recommendations that came out of that. So that was one thing that I thought of. The others, I feel like other people have already mentioned. So I think some of the nature-based solutions are going to be attractive to the public. So I think I totally agree with Rachel on the composting thing. I also really like the idea of a food scrap program, and that would be a nice way of engaging the schools, for example. So maybe we have some recommendations that are around composting and food waste, and we could have a few components of that. With that comes, the engagement of the schools and those kinds of things. Also, I thought as part of that nature-based solution would be, and I thought I saw somewhere on this outline, like the idea of installations on like public buildings but now I can't see it again. But if there were opportunities to either do, gardens on top of public buildings or even the solar panels, which I know have been a little bit of a sticky wicket, but those kinds of things. So we could have that as one piece, but with kind of a multi-prong approach. So one would be public, one would be school, and public meaning the community. Second would be school, and then third would be like public building, kind of like town responsibility. And then the those were my big ones. I agree with Aisha on the crisis management piece. I'm just not as familiar with all of the nuances of what that could mean. That could mean a number of different things. So it could mean public health things. It could mean infrastructure things. I have a vested interest in public health piece, but I would want to make sure that it's something that is of highest relevance to the town, which I feel like James also spoke to in some of his comments. So, and now I see his hand is raised.
James, you have a comment?
Well, thank you. I don't mean to interrupt too many times, but I just thought that the fire chief would be a very helpful resource, Laura, to get on the right track with respect to the hazard mitigation end of it, or even James Rush, the fire prevention officer. There's folks I think that would be very happy to help us and get members focusing in these categories on the right track. I just thought I'd share it with you, and I'd just say, don't be afraid to ever call or ask for help, and they'll be right there for you.
That's such a good point, James. And I think this is something that I know personally, I have not, I mean, I would love to tap into that, but haven't felt like, oh, I should just like call these people up. But we have an entire town of people that are experts in all of these different things, but maybe haven't all been put in the context of a climate, a climate situation. So I think that is such a good suggestion, and I love that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. Now, I'd be happy to intervene if you'd like to meet with him, or maybe we could have a Google Meets meeting just to get on the right track with this.
Well, could we have him come to one of our meetings? Sorry, Molly.
Oh, sure he would.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely open to, and again, that we do have a town meeting. We have something later on our agenda regarding speaking with town officials, but I do think this could be an ongoing thing. And where it makes sense to invite them to our meeting, then that's the way we'll do it. I think again that the communication doors need to be wide open, and we'll be much more productive if we engage in those discussions.
Yeah. And the one last thing I wanted to add to my list, and I think that was probably more than 3, but this one doesn't count because I think education and outreach is like, if you picture like pillars of the house that we're building, I feel like education and outreach is the foundation. So I feel like that is core and common to everything that we do, but that is absolutely fundamental to all of the things that we're doing. So I'm just looking at the outline and I see other issues, education and outreach. I don't see that as a separate initiative that's pulled through with all of these initiatives. That's all I wanted to say.
And I wholeheartedly agree with everything everybody has said. I will pick up on the education and outreach and just lead into what my list was. I would like, so we can do education and outreach, and we can hope some other committees do education and outreach, but I also like that to be embedded in the town and the town officials, that not only like a heightened awareness of climate action and what we're doing to address the challenges of climate action, but also that they're part of the messenger. So it's not just this handful of people over here who are on this committee. It's like our town is sort of, embodying this ethos that we need to be aware, we need to be active, we need to take the changes that we need to take to protect the town. So I think they're part of the messaging, they're part of the messenger, and they're part of the education and outreach. So I think that's a good thing. What I had put obviously is going to overlap, so that, which is terrific, to hire sustainability coordinator, which I think, we would certainly more develop that idea. And I would want to talk it through with Kathy Stanley, because in no way, shape, or form would it be a replacement for Kathy Stanley.
Right.
She is consultant for, I've been told, like 10 different towns. We have X percentage of her time. No sustainability coordinator, who tend to be young people, I'm told, can step into her expertise with energy issues. So anyways, we would need to talk that through. And in fact, all these, once we really have it boiled down to a number of interim recommendations, we should have some conversations with Kathy. That's why she's part of the committee. So I had sustainability coordinator, the EV charging stations, And quite frankly, I want them to be widespread. I want them to be at the library, the rec department. And the other issue is I almost wondered if there were a way to tell our really big retail outlets that they should have quite a few charging stations. So you think of the huge parking lot at Stop and Shop. You think of, Target. You think of the Priceline parking lot. Why aren't there 20 charging stations there? That's the kind of direction we need to go in. I don't know that we could, anybody other than the state could mandate that, but I just think it's worth a conversation, and maybe worth a conversation when we hopefully do outreach to the business community as well. So charging stations, and then also for the town. So I would think, generally speaking, and we can talk this through, that, most of our interim recommendations were like leading by example recommendations. So the town should do this, the town should do this, the town should lead on that, with hopefully, of course, bringing other people along as far as their individual households and everything. But so I would like to see, an electric vehicle fleet policy adopted by the town. And you can say, well, I don't think it works for this because of this, or I think we have to wait for this. But let's start having a conversation, start having some goals, some targets, and do some investigation, because some ideas may have been, turned down when in fact other police departments in the state of Massachusetts are doing it. So there has to be a way to do it. So I think that that's important. And then electrification of buildings. So that's actually a huge issue. I think that's a huge impact issue. So again, leading by example, looking at the town buildings, where are they with an electrification plan? Again, I'll go back to Kathy Stanley, who obviously has talked about this and is working on it with some issues, but that's all part of having like a master plan, that we're not going to keep repairing these systems that we should be replacing. Like, in other words, and yes, is there going to be a cost to that? Absolutely. But I think that's one of the things that I would want to talk about. And certainly one of the sustainability coordinators from another town I talked about, I said, what are you mostly doing? She said electrification of buildings, because that's such a high impact thing to do. All right, so.
Sorry, Molly.
Please.
Maybe I'm the only one here that doesn't know exactly what that means. When you say electrification of buildings.
Yes, that means switching off of fossil fuels and having a heat pump system, whether it's an air source heat pump or the highest, the best possible solution, but also the costliest, is a geothermal heat pump, which we're talking about on the sustainability committee, but so that you're no longer heating the buildings by gas.
Okay, so it's a heat thing. Okay.
It covers the air. I mean, it covers the air conditioning system as well.
Heat and water kind of thing.
You're right. Water as well, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would be getting away from gas. I believe Kathy said that there is no oil in town, so that, not that there's no oil in town, but that buildings are not heated by oil. So I think we're talking about switching from gas to an electric heat pump or a geothermal heat pump. So we're moving to renewable sources of heating and cooling our buildings.
Okay, thank you.
So that's not an easy recommendation, but that's again, it's like starting the plan, starting the recommendation, starting the, having that goal, and then figuring out how many years it's going to take us to get to that goal, and what buildings go first, et cetera, et cetera. So that is my list. I'm sorry, who's got their hand raised?
Me, Aisha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Wally. So when you say electrification of buildings, are you referring only to the community-owned buildings, or you're referring to every single individual homes or buildings in Stoughton as a community?
Certainly, as a short-term interim recommendation, we are talking about the municipal buildings and the schools. With respect to people, other commercial buildings, that's an interesting conversation, but I think that's sort of step two, and that's also something we would want to engage with them and encourage them. And actually, I have something to say about that later. Let's see if it's hopefully on my list when we talk about community engagement. But no, we're not going to be doing anything other than sort of pointing the way with respect to individual households. We'll be pointing the way. So pointing the way is explaining what a difference it makes, explaining how you can get it done, pointing to the tax incentives, pointing to the licensed general contractors who actually are licensed to do heat pumps, or install an updated water system. As I always start every conversation with, call Mass Save. They come to your house. They tell you where you're losing all the heat. It's going out this window, or it's going out your attic, whatever it may be. And then they can help you transition off of fossil fuels to renewables through an electric heat pump. But start by talking about your municipal buildings. That's what we'll focus on.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right. Thank you for the question. And I never see hands, so anybody chime in if I'm missing a hand that's raised. All right, so I think obviously we've given Michael quite a lot of notes to put in the minutes this time, and I apologize for that. Hopefully this is the most detailed part of the meeting. I think we'll take a look at that, and then we'll see how we can work through that, maybe to refine the list. Because we still have time. We certainly have between now and the end of the year and then January to continue to refine the list as we do more talking with stakeholders, with town officials, and gather more information. And again, we're certainly always welcome to take a look to what other towns have done along that specific issue and maybe be inspired by that. Laura, let's raise your hand.
Excuse me. Yeah, and just one thing to add to that, I think not to force it, but I think having a balance to those recommendations, and I think everything we've been talking about has been very nicely balanced, which is like, what are some things that we can do or recommend for the community? What are some things that the town can do, because we may have a little bit more pull there? What are things that, we might be able to influence private industry to do, so it's not all putting all the recommendations on kind of one sector of the community. So I think the conversation has been really nicely balanced, but I think that also would present a nice kind of set of recommendations where we're thinking about all of the different pieces of the ecosystem.
I like that comment very much, and I wrote that down. Balance about yes, different sectors, community, town, business, touching upon all those sectors, I think is good PR as well. So.
Well, and it's like sharing the responsibility, but we're not like dumping everything on like the community. For example, it's like what we talked about, like leading by example or trying to do things that are within our means and then moving from that point on.
All right, very good. I noticed what we didn't have on short-term recommendations, and I guess I didn't put it in there either, is solar panels. But maybe that's something just to loop in. And again, I think we need to have some in-depth conversations with Kathy Stanley about what's on our more refined list, and she can probably give us guidance in a lot of ways.
I kind of included that in my thinking of it's not nature-based solutions, but when I was thinking about installations, I kind of was lumping in solar panels with like other types of installations. So less about the type of installation, but more about how do we leverage, the space on top of buildings to do good things. So it wasn't called out explicitly as its own thing, but kind of folded in.
All right. Good. And my understanding, and I'm sure I could be corrected, is that sometimes that really is the best place or the most economical place to put a solar panel, because it's just, this is from, I think, a radio report. Sometimes it's just a little bit more expensive to do it over a parking lot. And then, I think we've come to the point where we don't want to be ripping up fields and trees to put in solar panels when there's, alternatives out there. We've all seen them in parking lots, so we know that that's doable as well. But it seems like that the rooftop solar panels are certainly may in some situations be the most feasible. All right, so in the interest of time, if we're ready, are we ready to move on to the next agenda item? All right, hearing no objection, number 4 is the town hazard mitigation plan. And I don't know if I owe it to Michael, who was the one who drew this to my attention. Again, another example of don't assume that I know that anything is going on because it's incredibly relevant to the work that we have done. And I believe I was able to scan the entire document, which thank you. James made it available to me. His office copied it. I picked it up. I've scanned it to everybody. And you can delve into it as much as you want. I believe James was on the committee, but it's really great because here you have the state. Actually, I'm not sure what the state agency was, with a multi-town analysis of their risks and suggested areas to address. And I thought, and I may have pointed this out in my email, I do have a copy of it before me, that if one looks at the tables, and there are a few sets of tables in here broken down by town. Sometimes it's hard to tell what town they're on, but if you look hard, you can find out, which talks about areas that they have worked on or areas that need improving. And I thought that those were obviously highly relevant. Maybe not to our interim recommendations, or maybe one or two of them are with respect to what we might suggest on the adaptation and resiliency side. Because we have had professionals who have already come in, deeply looked at the situation and said, oh, you need to improve this, or there has or has not been improvement on this. And I bet James has something to say about this, or what his thoughts are, since he's probably pretty familiar with this. What do you think the committee?
Well, yes, thank you, Molly. I wish I was more familiar with it than I am, but what I can say is one aspect that I am familiar with is that there is, in accordance with our municipal vulnerability plan, there is a flood study that's ongoing, and it is assessing areas where flooding is an issue. In fact, there are projections as to where flooding will be problems in the next few years based on the climate change that we're experiencing now and projected rainfalls in the future. And this map will be available in a public forum in the next few weeks. There'll be a second meeting of this phase in the second year of our MVP action grant, our MVP action plan. I advised the committee attend the meeting coming up. It was on a Thursday night at the library. Hopefully it can be coordinated with our Conservation Commission meetings, because I wasn't able to attend, or other members of the commission weren't able to attend, because the meeting was at the library on a meeting night of the Conservation Commission, but it involves concerns of the Conservation Commission and protected interests of the Conservation Commission. But I just want to alert the Climate Action Plan Committee that this is coming up and that we should voice our interest in attending that meeting, or probably even giving public testimony when we're given an opportunity. But that's one aspect I wanted to bring to your attention that I am familiar with respect to our hazard mitigation plan, for it's going to formulate, projected problem areas with respect to flooding based on a $200,000 grant, I believe, that we got in order to help us complete this study.
Thank you. And could you notice or send just information about that meeting, that public forum, to the committee members, and we'll see if people can attend.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to think.
Two raised hands, by the way. Michael and Alicia.
All right. So, Michael, you want to go first? Aisha, you'll go next.
Yeah, Jim, just for purpose of the notes, who's that meeting with specifically?
That's going to be meeting with our consultant, Kleinfelter, engineering and consulting. They're going to provide a public forum and a date to be announced in the future to announce the status of the second year of the MVP action grant concerning a study of flood hazard areas in the town of Stoughton.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aisha, you have a question, comment?
Yes. So my question was going to hang on the fact that if we were having hazard mitigation going on, how did we identify this hazard? Did we conduct a risk assessment for Stoughton as a community? Who were the environmental health company that we use to identify this hazard? So one would be, okay, go ahead, James. Let me
Thank you,
allow
Aisha. I understand that Beta is involved with the regional hazard mitigation plan, and several communities are involved. And Stoughton is one of the communities. There are a number of communities: Easton, Brockton, Canton, Taunton, West Bridgewater, and so forth, in the South Shore area. But Beta is the name of that company that developed that program, and they were the consultant that won the award to serve this area and this district, which we're a member of.
All right, thank you so much. I will probably Google them up and check that out, because
And I can help you with those documents if you reach out to me, and that would help, because then I won't forget to help you and get you a copy of the information that you need for that.
of
Yeah.
course, thank you so much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and if you see the report, which again, it's like a 150-page report that you should have received an email about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, you'll see that Beta's name is on it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So I feel like it might be helpful if people, again, take a look at the report, take a look at the tables of, improvements needed or whatever the recommendations might be. And then maybe we might want to say that, we would adopt some of them. One of the ones that jumped out at me for Stoughton was improvement needed, provide additional staff resources to write grant applications and seek additional funding opportunities. So that kind of meshes with a comment I got from the town about pursuing a federal grant. They were like, well, we're already understaffed. But there are some recommendations, I think, which we can speak to. I mean, obviously some are very, very highly technical. We're not engineers, except for, James has a lot of expertise in that. But I think there's things that we could look at and adapt. So I'll put that on the agenda again next week, and maybe people can be more concrete, and we could say, well, this and this and this suggestion sort of inspire us to say whether it's the short term or in the long term, we would include this in our climate action plan, perhaps. So those are my thoughts. But I think that's a really informative document that we should be familiar with to the extent that we can. Any other, and again,
Aisha has her hand raised.
oh, sure. Now I see it. Yes, Aisha, please.
Thank you, Laura. So again, where I was going with this is because we do know that if you go for a federal grant, you have to have sources, you have to have data to back up some of this stuff that you're putting out there. And because we do have access to people who works with the EPA and companies like the Beta that are giving us these projections, it will be an easy quote for you to say, this is why we need this grant. And then when they scan it and then they look into it in depth, they will see that this has been something that has been on the EPA radar for a while. So your grants will be like on a fast speed lane for the federal government to give you that grant. That was why I was very specific. Rather than going through 150 pages, a lot of people here work, they might not have the time to keep going through a page by page by page by page. If we have specifics from Beta as the company to say, can you please help us identify these hazards that we want to mitigate? And then we go from there. It will be a very good, a cheat sheet for us to put a spot on what we want and then go from there to get those funds.
I'm happy to help any way I can.
I agree, and I didn't think too many people would want to read the whole report, but that's why I like the tables. The tables, there's 2 or 3 sets of tables in there, sort of just break it down town by town, item by item, what they think you've done as a town, what they think you need to work on. So those are my guides there. But I would agree that if you have the expertise that's already analyzed it, the professional expertise, that would be very, very helpful with respect to fast tracking a grant or giving your grant application credibility. But I think what it comes down to is who's going to write the grant application, and what priority is it for the town? So that remains to be seen. Which I think, if we're done with this, leads me directly to the next topic, which is item 5, which is meeting with town department heads, which I'm very excited about. So with some emails back and forth with Pam, who I actually not sure I've been on the phone with her yet. She suggested that we have a meeting, so not necessarily the whole committee, but myself and hopefully 1 to 2 other people. I would be very happy. She said a virtual meeting for Thursday, November 2nd at 6 p.m. And I believe I have forwarded the link information. It's really going to be an introductory meeting. I haven't talked to Paul Jaffoon. He's the head of DPW. I haven't talked to Pam. I haven't talked to a number of people. So just to introduce them to what we're interested in, what we want, what we're looking at, what we might be considering, how can we engage with them, and so that the right and the left hander know what they're doing. I mean, I think Pam's out there filling all sorts of grant applications. We don't even really know what she's doing, and we definitely have to make that link very strongly. So I would be happy if people want to. First of all, I would love if maybe 2 other people could join in the meeting. And if, amongst other reasons, to help take, not minutes, but just to help take notes, right? So that we capture everything that happened and we can report back to the full committee. And then also, what questions or suggestions do you have other than obviously what we've been talking about tonight? Anything specific that you're like, wow, I'd really like to ask DPW this, or ask the fire chief, whoever, and I'm not sure of the cast of everybody who's going to be there actually. So I'd be happy to take thoughts and questions. And James, you have your hand up.
Well, I'm aware Mark and Pam will be available. I'm not aware of anyone else yet, but it sounds like if the fire chief was there, that would be a very good, it'd be great to meet with him. So we could ask some questions along the lines of what we're discussing tonight. Ask Mark about the flood grant, our municipal vulnerability program grant, our MVP grant, anything that has to do with the parking lot with respect to charging stations would be fair game to ask them about. Just ask them about what projects they're involved with to establish communication between them and what's going on in the town, because there's a lot going on in the town that would be very good for our committee to know about and to give you a better feeling about what is being done. But it's just the right questions have to go in the right ear. I mean, you could ask them about the composting program. And another thing I wanted to mention was to ask you, Molly, on the side, if we could advertise our composting units and our rain barrels on our CAP webpage, because that would just be one more way to get the word out. So I remember Rachel said it was one of the best kept secrets in the town. And
I didn't know about it until you mentioned it.
It really is, because nobody knows about it. I used to be in charge of my own webpage, but then there was reorganization, and then it was put under another a department and organized differently.
Right.
The more we
Okay,
can
so
get this
hold
out,
on.
the better. So not to get off the subject, but that's one of the things I want to ask you too. But those are also some questions we can ask Mark this Thursday.
Yes, and I just want to make a comment that I want to call on Laura, which is that Rachel earlier referenced that 2015 plan, which had all those recommendations. I want to pull that out and I want to ask some questions about those. Like, we don't even know what they've already done, what they haven't done, where do they get stuck? So that's on my personal agenda to ask them about. And Laura, let me go to you now.
Oh, mine was less productive. Mine was, a comment on what a great opportunity I think this will be. I unfortunately am not available. I'm going to be in Europe at a conference. So I would normally love to be part of this, but I'm going to have to sit this one out. So.
Oh.
All right, understood. You'll be at a different time zone. That's okay. There will be more meetings with town officials. Absolutely.
All right. Sign me up for those.
Anybody else?
Bon voyage.
Merci.
Anybody else? Yeah, don't do the French in Ireland. It won't work.
No. Irish in France doesn't work either.
Oh, geez.
Anybody else available to attend the meeting?
I received an invite, so I'll be attending, but
Yeah.
I'm
if
interested
anybody
in
else would be
attending,
better,
but
if other people attend.
small kids, I'm not sure. It is
Okay.
virtual though, so
Okay, all right, so.
I can't confirm yet.
Right, if anybody doesn't think they have the invitation, but might want to drop in on the meeting, let me know. I'll send them the invitation again from Pam McCarthy. But this will be the first of multiple meetings, and quite frankly, hopefully in-person meetings. That's what, once we get through this, and it was gracious of them to agree to meet at 6 o'clock at night, but quite frankly, there could be some times where I could squeeze a day meeting in. But again, it's always nice to have company and support. So we'll see about arranging for those, but hopefully that will be productive. All right, so moving on to, I'm happy to say, a nice topic, I think, which is topic 6, the community survey. And before we turn it over to our friend Rachel, I did want to, since not everybody was here at the meeting last night, talk about Stoughton Day. So I went to Stoughton Day, and Aisha went to Stoughton Day with me, and she's great at working the crowd. She really helped get a lot of, she certainly knows a lot of people, which is lovely. And she was great at getting a lot of surveys completed. And I was very happy that when we got all those hard copy surveys completed, that Rachel stepped forward and agreed to tabulate the survey, and then did the enormous amount of work, enormous amount of burden off my shoulders of doing the entire Survey Monkey thing. So everybody raised their hand who was actually sent around the survey to people that they know to answer. All right. All right, we got everybody. So I think that's how you really spread the word. And Rachel, do you want to speak to what results you've seen so far, numbers and things?
Yeah, 1 second, let me present. So just quickly, I wanted to show the Stoughton Day responses. So this was the question about the effectiveness of current climate change initiatives. You see that over 50% of people had no idea about it. And then, have you noticed weather patterns changing? 92% of people said yes. And then this is that in bar form, and then the support for initiatives. And you could just see, like, overwhelmingly people are in favor of this. And so 1 second, let me close that. And we have 110 responses now when we had 108 when this started, which is fantastic.
And that's Survey Monkey response.
It's not Survey Monkey. It turns out that Survey Monkey has completely changed since grad school, and now they are awful, and we're nickel and diming you and won't even answer questions unless you pay for them. So I said, you know what? I have a husband who's so great in Excel. I don't need to worry about that. I can do it myself. So, or I can do it with him, making him do it. So the 110 responses, we're getting very similar results to what we got on Stoughton Day, which is really making me think that, oh wait, people really do like this. This is very valid that we're getting 2 different responses, 2 different snowball samples essentially that are giving very similar responses. And again, over 50% of responses are they have no idea what the current climate change initiatives are. The people who do know, not very effective. And then, like, of the options, all of them are incredibly popular. People really want this. Until I think just the last few comments, they were all overwhelmingly positive. Even the people who say no to noticing weather patterns still wanted some of the initiatives, which I thought was interesting. We're starting to get a little bit of spam of people who are basically saying the same thing. It's smelling like it's organized, but even so, like, it's a very small fraction of the town who, and even of those people who are saying, like, no, we haven't noticed any change, most of them still want some of these initiatives. So it's good. We have popular support. We have people who really want to see this happening. So I think, like, people are very pro the initiatives that we're suggesting, very, very receptive. A lot of people are like, I'm so excited that the town is doing this. I want to hear more. I don't know if anything's going to happen because this town doesn't do this kind of thing, but I'm excited about it anyway. So like people are really, really for this. I think that our specific suggestions are good. They're going to be empirically based. They're not going to be as expensive as people think because the prices of doing things in a climate safe way are dropping all the time. The rewards are going up. The externalities of the hidden costs of doing things the way we've been doing them are just too high, and we're starting to see that. And so it's cheaper, it's better, it's good for the world, it's good for us to do it. So I'm just like overall very, very positive about the results that we're getting. We've outpaced the 2014-2015 survey in just terms of who's responded. And I think that doing it on Google Docs, it's fairly successful. I can mock up I'm not like great at design and getting people to do things, but I could mock up a quick like QR code, like make your opinion known survey that takes 1 to 2 minutes, and then put in the QR code so people could scan that with their phones and then put that up at the library and the Y or a couple other places for getting more responses. But again, like overall, we're getting a very, very positive and consistent response that these initiatives are things people want. These are things people are pumped for. These are things that the town is going to really enjoy having. So on that positive level. And again, like I agree with Michael about making sure that it's not something that people feel like it's forced on them, making them feel that there are options. But again, a lot of people are going to choose this. So I'm really happy.
All right.
Laura?
I'm going to get back to you in a minute, but I want Laura to go. But I want to follow up on that issue with the flyer. So Laura, comments?
Excuse me. Thank you. I think this is awesome. And it's always so great to validate things, not just in one big pool, but when you have, sample sets of slightly different scenarios, kind of confirming the same thing. So I think we just keep doing what we're doing. I know when we talked about this before, one of the things that was suggested was posting this on like the Stoughton enthusiast page or, some of the different Facebook pages, because, to Michael's point, we don't want people to feel like this is forced on them, but some people love a survey. And if you put it on Facebook, it's seeing it, they might be inclined to do it. So have we done that, or is that something
I have put it on Stoughton enthusiasts and a couple other groups? I did. I don't know if it got seen by everyone. I know at least one person saw it. I messaged it to some of my friends in town, people who I've worked with on different things. And it's been spreading. Whenever I ask, I am asking people to send it along to 3 people they know in town. Because that is the campaign initiative. Like this actually gets people to show up and vote more. So I figured that would also apply to this.
I also give you permission, Rachel, if you want to tag me next time.
I don't think I'm friends with anyone but Michael on Facebook, and so that should change. The other thing I'd like to do, and I wanted to get permission or buy-in from the group to do it, is to create a Stoughton Climate Action Plan Committee page on Facebook. So we could share the survey directly from that. We could post 2 initiatives that are going on. It's not really, I don't want to be on it a lot. I don't really want to be monitoring it at all. I don't want to do the social media aspect of it, but it is helpful to have it parked, to have a place to gather this information, and to post about things like composting, to post about things like the rain barrel program. That is a really good way of getting it out. If we have a Facebook page, I know Facebook use is not always going up in every area, but it'll be something that we can point to. That's pretty easy, besides the website.
So I can I think we should put that on an agenda to talk about that. So I'm making myself a little note on that. I just wanted to pick up on where it has been promulgated It has been, and I shall get to you. I did see your hand for a change. It has been promulgated to, it is on our it is on our town website now. I had Trish put it up. Trish said she also has put it to the quote town crier. So
Oh,
that
good.
town crier thing is emailed to people as well. She may have mentioned a third thing she did. I was totally on the same page with you with wanting to get a hard copy flyer with a copy of the link and the QR code. And I had two thoughts about that. One, is there anybody artistic on the committee? We had somebody on sustainability committee who did beautiful flyers. Anyways, I can't bother him. And I also wondered, so I've emailed it to the two teachers at the school who we discussed, the advisor for the recycling club and Mr. Beaulieu, who I think is the AP environmental science teacher. I almost wanted to say, is this inappropriate to say, do you think any of your students might want to make up a flyer for this? And then we would approve it, and it would be very neutral, just announce who we are, have some pretty, colors or the earth or something, and say, hey, if you want to take a climate survey that the town is doing, the town committee is doing. Do you think that would be an idea?
I would be all for that, because again, like getting people involved with something that is eye-catching and effective is a skill set all on its own. And I think Gen Z is pretty good at it.
Well, we could make it a contest.
You could make it a contest, but that might just take longer. If it's just like, hey, can the recycling club take an afternoon to look at this? Maybe like
Right.
the faster, the better. Or
Sure.
we could have, if we did a contest, we could do like, who wants to do a logo?
All right. So let me get to Aisha, and then I know Michael has his hand raised too. Aisha, and if Aisha have any artistically talented people?
Thank you, Molly, for that. Rachel, do you mind taking that link here on the chat box? I can post it on the Stoughton Moms page on
The
Facebook.
link to the survey right now?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I
Thank
do. I as far as I like the idea of us creating a Facebook page to post all of our stuff, I also want to see so in total, while we're still creating that Facebook page, I would like us to put it in pages and places where you could have more traffic and you have more visibility. Because I know that those pages already existing. They do have, multiple people, like you have up to like 5,000, 6,000 people on those pages. So when you put a post like that on it, the traffic is going to be heavy. And thank you, I got it. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Kevin Walden just said that if there's anything we want to advertise, we can email him.
Oh,
Thank you so much,
snap.
Kevin. I will forward you the survey right now. So
Thank
so
you,
much.
Kevin. I appreciate that comment. And then I think Michael had a comment. His hand was raised.
Yeah, just one suggestion. I like the idea of QR codes on any print pieces, particularly something that's just posted to a bulletin board or something. I did notice in the town crier, the link there. One thing we might want to consider is creating a tiny URL so that we don't have a string of 12 to 15 characters that don't really add up. If we could put a tiny URL on posters, and you can select your own, if they're available, your own characters. So something to just make it a lot easier.
Okay. All right. So what I'm hearing is that Aisha is also going to spread the survey as much as she can through things that she is can contact. I will reach out to the teachers and see, hey, does anybody want to do up a very, a simple flyer, right? It doesn't, but just add some color to it or something. Then they could send it to me. I could make some photocopies. We could get a few posted around the town. I certainly could take advantage of the Y and the library, because we have our library trustee here. That would be helpful. And as we're discussing this, I've been thinking in ahead. So we are now like deeply engaged in actual work that needs to be in our ultimate report. So in other words, I don't want us to, 18 months from now say, oh, wow, we're rounding the end of our report. We have to now, when did we do that survey? How many how many people, what happened here? I think we need to be reporting as to the community engagement pieces as we're going along.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually just start doing that, but I will probably ask like Rachel to fill in some data and whatever it is. Like I'm literally gonna start because that's obviously part of the introduction to these reports. We met with 20 town officials. We had 3 meetings on this day. So rather than try to recreate that a year from now, let's just start the narrative right now. So I'll start the narrative. I'll reach out for people to fill in the narrative. November 2nd, that's going to be our first meeting with town officials, right? So that'll go in our narrative of the things that we've done as far as outreach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, very happy with the survey, with everybody who's done so much work on that. I think that's really, in and of itself, it's raising consciousness and it's raising awareness. And that's a great motivator, quite frankly, for people to focus on what's really very important. If we're done with the survey, I would move on to number 7, which is school engagement, just to spend a couple minutes on that. I know the meetings, we're about 8:15 now, 8:15 and going in. We've sort of, taken our first leap that we've talked to the student advisor, and I've sent in a couple of emails, but I didn't know what kind of thoughts people in general had. I know we had talked about Rachel and Laura being involved, but I think Aisha also has children at the school, at the middle school, I'm guessing. And she's like another person who could be involved at whatever level that the 3 of you want to, or 2 of the 3 or whatever the issues are. But school engagement, and one of the things one could imagine would be meeting with the superintendent, would be doing a 3-minute presentation, public comment to the school committee. And then obviously forging relationships with Joyce Husseini, who is the director of maintenance on operations, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll just, I don't know if Laura, Rachel, or Aisha have any comments at this point. And I know Rachel's been quite busy.
I talked to Joyce Husseini, and she said, right now, the business department at the school needs to figure out a rate, looking at costs. She says that the EV charging station is going to be a money loser, unfortunately, but they have to figure out the exact rate. And that's something that Kathy Stanley actually talked to us about. School committee has to approve the electric charging vehicle rate, whenever that is, and then their department does the contract. And she also said that the superintendent is making this a priority. He's really excited about it. I think he's going to be excited about other things. I think one thing is, once we have something that we can bring to the schools, essentially, whether that is the anti-idling initiative, whether that's food compost, we should definitely make a meeting with the superintendent directly. He seems pumped about this too.
Thoughts, Laura or Aisha? Just raise your hand. About school engagement?
That sounds amazing. I have to admit that I've been a little bit out of the picture on the school engagement stuff, but I'm glad to know that Rachel has been, leading the charge here.
It came up organically. I was sending out the survey, and because I was sending out the survey, someone said, "Can you check in on this?" And I said, "Yes." That's my job now.
That's amazing. So yeah, I think also engaging at multiple levels, right? So, if we can engage at the level of someone that's kind of doing similar work as a teacher mentor with like a recycling club, but we're also thinking about food waste, and we're also thinking about, other things. I think the high school is a natural place to start, but I know Molly, you had sent an email about the middle school as well. So I do have kids at the middle school, and I'm happy to work with Aisha or on my own, whatever, to reach out there too. But I do think that the school stuff is such an important component of this. And there's going to be a lot of enthusiasm there. And Rachel, I'm sorry, did you say that the superintendent was also kind of jazzed about this?
So what Joyce Husseini said to me, I didn't meet with the superintendent. I talked to Joyce Husseini. She said that the superintendent was very excited about the electric vehicles. So I think that we should probably make a meeting with him once we know what we're proposing the schools to get involved with. And I think that we could probably do like food agenda, and depending on what, after the sustainability meeting, we could also probably do something with them as well, because the anti-idling proposal is supposed to go on at the schools.
Yeah. And I would love to hear directly from him, you know, what are his concerns or what is he, you know, I mean, he's the superintendent for multiple schools in, you know, throughout the town. So I think it would be great if we could meet with him and come with some of the things that we're proposing, but also really sit down and understand, like, what are the things that he's concerned about, or what is he hearing from his teachers or his students that they're concerned about, and kind of have it be almost like an advisory session with him. I think that would be really informative. And maybe we come with a few kind of ready suggestions.
I think it's important for it to be, you know, a dialogue, that it's a broad-based dialogue too, because we are doing a climate action plan for the town, but quite frankly, we want to brace the schools into that as much as possible.
Exactly.
And it might be helpful to glance over 3 or so climate action plans and see what they did with the schools. So that could sort of, you know, give us some ideas.
And he's come from other townships as superintendent, you know, perhaps he's learned things in some of his other administrative roles that I would love to hear about. So it would be great if we could, you know, catch his time and have a chat with him.
Absolutely. All right. Anybody have anything to add as far as the school engagement piece at this time? And I had actually the specific email, just to reference, that I had sent, I think, to just Aisha perhaps and Laura, was there tends to be like a holiday fair at OMS every year. And I think last year there were like, you know, 30 different vendors and hundreds of people. I thought if they would give us a place to put our table up and our banner up, which is actually the sustainability banner. But anyways, we could get more surveys, we could talk to people, we could get down emails. So if it isn't there anybody like Aisha, I know that Laura's about to travel out of the country. Aisha, do you know anybody connected with the PTO or anybody at OMS who might be involved in that holiday fair they do?
I do know the PTO chair. I can give you feedback on that.
Oh, that would be great. If you could talk to the PTO chair, that would be helpful. And again, we would just like to squeeze a little table into that room and be able to, you know, disseminate our survey and have more people get to know us and have more people fill out our survey. So that would be great. Thank you. That's a great connection. So I'll leave that with you. All right. And next, community engagement. And before we talk broadly, I want to talk something narrowly, which is actually kind of exciting. And I believe Rachel was there at the meeting. Sustainability Committee had a former member of the Sustainability Committee meeting, a young man who doesn't live in town anymore, but he works for Eversource, I believe. And he works for Eversource and reaching out to businesses and industry to you know, get off of fossil fuels and to electrify their buildings and their power. So I have his contact information. I thought he would be a great person if we do a community outreach forum or something, business roundtable that focuses on businesses and industry, that we could actually have him come to speak. And he could talk about the Eversource program. I mean, he's going to have so much expertise in this issue, and that could be a huge step forward. The more that people in the town, business people in the town or industry people take a look at upgrading, you know, updating their heating and cooling systems to heat pumps or whatever it might be, or even just energy efficiency issues with their buildings. So I was excited to meet him. He's in my contact list now. And, you know, that is to be determined, but I think he would be a really good poll of people who would have like a really worthwhile meeting with somebody there to talk to them and not just us talking to them. So generally, community engagement is obviously an ongoing issue, an ongoing strategy. And I don't know if anybody's thinking of, I think at this point, it's probably too late to have any kind of community meeting before the holidays. I think let's just continue to work on our issues and work on meetings with town officials, and then maybe even think about meetings with some members of other committees or commissions in town, whether it's they come to our meeting or we have a meeting with a few of them, which I know has been floated. But then I think we need to focus on something happening in January as far as some type of community gathering. And welcome to, for any ideas about that. And again, it never hurts to look at what other climate action plans are out there. And I did send you an email about another couple of climate action plans I looked at. I think Wayland was this beautifully short one. I swear it's like 15 pages long. But it was really still meaningful and creative, and I would say even like optimistic, and there was a great spirit behind it. So I thought it was a really worthwhile one to take a look at. And again, there's always a nugget in one plan that you've never seen in any other plan. So if you had all the time in the world, you'd sort of take all the good nuggets and see which ones might work for Stoughton. But it's always worthwhile, again, if you don't have time to look at a long plan, look at one of the short plans. And that might be helpful. But any ideas? Let me just go around the group as far as community engagement, what we should be doing next, public meeting or anything of that nature. I'll just go around. Aisha, any ideas?
I'll pass for now. If I do find something, I will definitely pass it out.
Okay, thank you. Michael, ideas, strategies?
Two things. I guess I like the idea of community meetings, like you said, possibly starting in January. I think sooner rather than later is a good idea. Also, if we can ever get ourselves invited to any groups in town, I'm a member of one organization, some of you know, that I think would be happy to hear from one of us. And if we can get ourselves as individuals or whatever in front of any organizations we're part of, I think that'd be on, and also a useful approach.
I agree, and such, obviously that means Conservation Commission, but also, the Zoning Board of Appeals Redevelopment Authority.
Well, not just municipal organizations, any other organizations as well.
Okay, absolutely. Library Board of Trustees.
And
Outside of municipal.
yeah, but if there is anything for me to bring up specifically, and we can always reserve rooms at the library as well. So, but
Okay.
yeah, community organizations,
Churches, political organizations, etc.
like Yiddish language learning group is probably not to be too relevant, but.
All right, that's great. I mean, years ago when I was running for school committee, everybody was about, well, you have to go talk to the Portuguese club because that's an important constituency. I don't really have a direct connection to that, but if anybody does, that would be another type of idea. The VFW, I don't know, VFW meeting. Trying to think of the other obviously the churches, things of that nature.
What about like the historical society or something like that, where, I feel like that connects people on a certain level, and it may be unexpected, but it's kind of like, if we're thinking about our future, we have to remember our past kind of connection.
Dave Lambert is on the Board of Trustees too, so.
Dave Lambert is an absolute must. I mean, he's so connected with everything. I think it would be great for us to have a conversation with him, because he understands so many different facets of the town. Just thinking outside the box a little bit.
No, that's a good idea. And you're right there. Anybody who's active in any community organization, well, the Lions Club, like that comes to mind. Again, I don't know anybody, I don't think, at the Lions Club, but that's the kind of group though that I did notice.
Rotary Club, not Lions.
What's that, Anisha?
I said the Rotary Club, not Lions.
Oh, it's not called the Lions Club anymore?
No, I said I am part of the Rotary Club.
Oh, okay. All right. So there we go. So Aisha is a member. That is great to know. Okay. Very good. Right. And again, this is, the outreach to all these organizations, I think is going to be critical. I'll personally work on my outreach to the YMCA, which I've been working on them for a couple of years anyway. So I'll continue to work for the YMCA and the board of the local YMCA. All right, so again, it sounds like, does it make sense? And I was going in a circle, and I don't know if I got stopped at Rachel or where I don't want to skip over anybody, but anybody else have any comments on community engagement?
Well, what about churches? I know the Unitarian Church had a environmental fair a few years ago where we let them borrow a composting unit and a rain barrel.
Oh, yeah.
And they sold quite a few of them, actually. I mean, there are
Do
some
we have
folks
churches?
on the open space committee that have connections with the Unitarian Church and their fairs. I mean, we have to think about folks that worship too. And we have the temple in town also.
Yep.
If there are any members of the committee that, you know, are members of the temple or any other religious group, I think it might be something worthwhile. I was thinking along the library too. When Rachel brought that up, that's always been a great place to spread public awareness, meeting rooms with billboards or anything else.
There's also Girl Scouts. There's like 5 or 6 troops in Stoughton.
Sure.
Sort of
And they
does
call it
stuff.
family scouting now, because now with the Boy Scouts,
Yeah, there's
they're
no
open
boys
to
or
all
girls.
kids, anyone,
Right.
you know, boys or girls now. And we've had one girl who did a great job, who created a trail map at the Glen Echo Conservation Land, and she proudly displayed it in Blaze Trails. Did a great job of marking our trails for us. And it was digitized, and she's working with our GIS coordinator, who happens to be very artistic also, to create trail maps of the Glen Echo Conservation Land.
Beautiful.
Wanted to mention
Love it.
that.
Well, all those are great ideas, 100% with respect to the churches and the temple as well. I'm definitely, and I think multiple people are in touch with people at the Unitarian Church.
Yeah.
I also just want to say for the record that I hope I get his name right. Pope Francis has issued like an amazing statement a month or two ago. And a few years ago, he issued an amazing statement about climate change, and now he's issued a very, very forceful statement about the urgency of action. So I would think that, you know, as an example of one denomination, perhaps the Catholic denomination would be open and interested. And quite frankly, if I had the connections, or if anybody else does, just send them the survey, and maybe they could send it to their members, and just to let them know we're out there, we're working on this, and sort of make that connection. Anybody who might have any connection, whether you're a member or not, to any church, as long as it's a Stoughton Church or Temple, I think there's no reason not to go ahead and do that. Aisha?
Just because you said this, I remember they just had like a Greek festival, and we had a lot of people coming to that Greek festival. They were selling a lot of Greek cheese, so many stuff. I don't know if it's something we could look into.
Absolutely. Any kind of like festival or gathering. And again, our work's going to go on for another like 18 months, apparently. So any kind of, festival or gathering that about, it's great for us to show up, to make ourselves known, to maybe hand out some flyers, from time to time. I actually have a flyer of sustainability tips, which I should have brought to Stoughton Day, but I did not. But hopefully in future events where we expect people to show up, I'll bring some of those flyers. But I also appreciate, again, everybody's ideas about putting more things on our website with the town. Again, I think that's something to continue to discuss. All right. So anything else on community engagement strategy and plans before we move on to the next item? Alrighty. So the next item, I do have public comment on the item. I don't know if there are any members of the public who would care to speak now. We usually keep these, just so you know, public comment, we usually would keep to a couple of minutes. And typically it's not like a back and forth, but if somebody has some good issues they raise or questions they raise, then we, would try to get back to the person or try to address it at another meeting. But if people just want to make a comment on our activities or have any ideas or suggestions, I guess I am opening it up now for public comment. Looks like we have one observer, but I don't know if you want to comment or not. I'll just give you.
Yeah, I'd like to comment.
Thank you. Who do we have?
This is Jana.
Hello, Jana.
Hello.
Hello,
We can hear
Jana.
you. We can hear you.
Hello. I want to know if you're aware that the Brockton Fire Department is the premier source in this region on handling electric car battery fires. And they have noted how dangerous the thermal runaway is on the electric batteries because they're made up of hundreds of cells. And once one of them gets damaged, like from a pothole or anything, they can ignite and lead to potential explosions. And the cars need to be covered for days afterwards because there still is the issue of a potential explosion after the fact. These heat up so intensely hot that they cannot be put out. They have to be burnt. They have to just let themselves burn out. What is your how are you factoring that knowledge into your into your committee, into your policies that you want to implement?
So Jonna, thank you for your comment. We don't engage in back and forth, but I think your comment is a relevant comment and it will be duly considered by the committee in doing its work.
I heard
So
something
you
about that. Yep, that was terrible. I heard about that. That wasn't common knowledge, I think, until that happened.
Well, I've actually known about it for quite a while because there's been quite a few instances of this and I've been following it for quite a while.
All right. Thank you. Is there anybody else out there who has a public comment to make? I don't really see anybody else who's joined the meeting.
Well, can I ask another question?
I think you still have time left. Yes, go ahead. You can
Oh,
make
okay.
another comment.
Well, the grid wasn't able to handle all of the extra air conditioning that was going on in summertime. So how do you anticipate being able to put more electric cars and other things into the mix if the grid can't handle what's available now? We don't even have 1% of people using electric vehicles right now. So if you want to push for more, how do you expect to have the grid handle that?
All right. Thank
Do
you.
you mind, Molly, if I take this question?
Well, I honestly, it's not on our agenda that we're not going to respond to the questions. I think that the member of the public can make comments and make and ask questions. If we want to add it to an agenda in future, you can take a note of that and we can talk about adding it to an agenda in the future. But it's just been my experience, and again, I'm drawing on my school committee experience, that it's can be very time consuming and distracting to have a response back and forth. But if you want me to add it to the agenda, Aisha, we can talk about it at a future meeting. That's just.
I was just going to tell Jonah that question is for the Greek to answer and not the Climate Action Committee, because the Greek are in charge and they manage those situations. We as a Climate Action Committee, we can put a note on it and we can see how we can work on that. But that's not a question for the Climate Action Committee. Please take notes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. So anybody have any other business at the end of our agenda now that could not be anticipated previously?
Can I ask one third question?
No, actually, I think we're done with public comment now. We've moved on to the next area. Anything else?
Okay,
that
so
is
there's no answer, there's no
No.
response to the questions? There's no definitive answers or any?
So, Jonna?
I believe she is muted now because we're past the public comment section of the agenda.
All right, thank you. Just anything else that needs to be added that was not on our agenda needs to be addressed. Hopefully, so our next meeting hopefully will be 2 Mondays from now. I appreciate the attendance, appreciate all the thoughts. People certainly put a lot of thought into their interim recommendations and everything. Anything else to add? Any other announcements or like develop any things to add to the before we close off for tonight?
Mine is not an addition. Mine is just a reminder. If you could please send me the dates of that program so I can definitely work towards that and make sure that I push that really fast.
I'm sorry, the dates of what program?
The program that you wanted us to have a table with the school committee.
Oh, the holiday fair?
Yes.
Yes, okay, absolutely. I'm not sure when it is. That's all I can say. Like, I can check on the OMS website, and if I find that out, but it tends to be between Thanksgiving and Christmas. At least it
Alright,
was
thank
last
you.
year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty, okay, well, thank you. Anybody else, any other comments? And we will, I think if nothing else, Rachel?
So I followed up on Michael's suggestion about using the tiny URL, and now there is tinyurl.com/Stoughton cap. We'll go directly to the survey.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, I saw it was up almost before I was done talking. I think it's much easier. You glance, if you see it, on the
Yeah.
crier or something, it's a lot easier to say,
I didn't
type
want-
in Stoughton Cap, you'll remember it briefly, type it in, and you're all set.
I didn't
I
want anyone
appreciate
to
it.
think I was like sending them to a weird website, so I wanted it to show like it was a docs.google or SurveyMonkey, but like I completely see your point.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, everybody tonight. Have a good evening. Have a good week.
Motion to adjourn?
Weeks.
Oh, yes, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Go around,
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will adjourn. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Be
Thank you.
safe.
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Good
Good
job,
night.
everyone.